Hi, I'm Steve Chernoski, and this is Tapinto You, a new podcast on regional issues brought to you by Tapinto Flemington-Raritan, your neighborhood news online. Find us at tapinto.net. This episode is taped on December 28th, 2020. My guest today is local sports writer Mike Ashmore, who covers college and professional sports, minor and major leagues for mycentraljersey.com and the Trentonian. And Mike, thank you for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to add onto your bio?
Oh no, I try to keep it humble. If anybody wants to look up the stuff I've done there, they're free to. But I get around. Put it that way, I get around. So,
how many years have you been writing?
this will be the end of year 18 for me. So yeah, getting there. My career can almost drink at this point. So we're getting.
Oh, almost. You could vote. Your career could vote. No.
Yes.
So I guess. When I first contacted you, I did have a lot of interest on, I never kind of knew what happens with the minor league sports in Trenton. And now they're in the news, of course, with the, AA affiliate of the Yankees moving from Trenton to Somerset. But before getting into that, I guess with COVID still ongoing, vaccines being distributed, what do you see as the future of minor league sports? I know hockey and baseball are different to a degree. But, with the baseball side, I've seen what looks like a contraction that might be, the new normal going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for minor league sports going forward in the short term. None of these franchises can have a year like they had last year. I mean, a lot of these are, you view them as sports teams that are this big, massive, giant conglomerate operation. A lot of these things are small businesses, too. People really don't think of it that way. And, a lot of these places cannot have a year on field, off field, anything like they had last year. So, I think there's going to be a big emphasis on getting some form of a season in. I keep hearing over here in Somerset that we're going to have a May start, which would be about a month late for a typical standard Eastern League start. And again, at the time that they've taped this, they haven't even announced that Somerset is officially in the Eastern League. They haven't announced all the official alignments and all that stuff yet. That's all rumors and reported and all that stuff. But minor league sports is it's a perilous spot right now for sure, but it seems like things are tracking to where, everyone will be able to get some form of a season in some form or fashion, I guess. There's some lower level leagues that might not be able to pull it off, but even the ECHL, as you know, is kind of doing a split schedule, split season thing to where they're able to do it. And just hope for the best for all these things. I mean, minor league sports has been a big part of my life, big part of your life, I'm sure. And, it would suck to see it greatly altered or affected in a negative way going forward.
And they're predominantly ticket driven, unlike pro sports that can rely. I mean, hockey is a little more precarious because the television deal isn't as wealthy, I guess you could say, as the other sports. But these are gate driven leagues, and they're going to be hurt accordingly, right?
Right, because they've even last year in Somerset, the whole thing was they're not going to open if they can't have fans. So there's some sort of number, a percentage of capacity that these teams need to get to in order for it to make sense for them to open. They're not going to open at a loss, especially after what happened to all these teams and franchises last season. But yeah, it's very gate driven. Obviously, there's a big element of sponsorship. That is a big part of that as well. But even last year, most of these teams, can't really say they were able to deliver on those sponsorship agreements. So I'm not really sure what they're able to haul in if they aren't long-term deals. If just one-year deals, then you didn't have anybody at your ballpark. You didn't have anybody at your arena. So you need those gate numbers to really generate that revenue and, get people here, pay for parking, pay for food, all that stuff. All that stuff that generates revenue is driven by people, butts in the seats. And they haven't been able to really do that over the past year or so. So again, it's trending to where, again, like you said, with the vaccine and all that kind of stuff, it's trending to where they're going to be able to at least have enough people in the seats going forward as maybe that gradually improves to where things will get back to normal-ish. But again, it's pretty, normal-ish, but it's pretty, that might be our new normal is normal-ish, but it's still a pretty perilous spot for minor league sports as a whole kind of going forward in 2021.
And with the pros continuing, they have to have farm systems, right? They have to have players that are not sitting there cold in game atmosphere or game-like atmospheres. And you have to have drafts too, of course. It's just, how does baseball do this going forward? How do they have drafts? How do they hold these games?
Yeah, it's trying to think of a PG-13 way to say it. It messes up the whole system, put it that way. You look at what the big leagues did last year. They had those alternate sites where they're able to kind of get their prospects some development, but kind of internally nobody could really see it. A lot of scouts were limited from getting to see that as well. Yeah, it's not ideal. You want your guys going up against the best competition and not necessarily an internal thing. That's the best part of the minor league, is you're able to develop your guys against the other franchise's best guys as well. So, they need that this year. I'm hoping that happens. College baseball has kind of been affected by this. Travel baseball, every level of sport, every level of baseball has been affected by this. So it's going to be really just funky going forward until we kind of dig out of the hole that this all created. Even in terms of guys, college guys being eligible for an extra year, how does that affect guys who are coming in for their freshman year? Like, all these opportunities are just so unique over the next couple of years, given what's gone on in good old 2020. So I guess we'll see how it all unfolds.
Yeah. So going back to the Thunder, they really made the news this summer with losing the affiliation. I use the word losing. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but what exactly happened with the Thunders and Yankees in Somerset? I mean, because so that listeners understand, you cover both the Thunder and the Patriots, so you're very familiar with these two organizations.
Yeah, I got my start in Somerset in 2003 when I was 20 years old. Older than people seem to think. I got my start there in 2003. I did a lot of stuff with the Thunder, primarily between like 2008 and 2013, and I took over again full-time in Somerset, but I was always in both places back and forth. Thunder-wise, so that was, on the surface, it was pretty shocking just because they were always viewed as a really prominent, successful, and they were, I'm not saying that they were viewed that way in a false sense. They were always viewed as a really prominent, successful organization that was always at the top of their game. And, there is always kind of banter back and forth between, me being at Somerset and me being in Trenton and various places that I would work in, not necessarily liking that based on the disagreements that those two organizations would have. But I have nothing bad to say about the Thunder organization. They've all been great to me, over the past 2 decades or so. And it's tough to see them lose that affiliation. I know they're going to do a great job in this new college draft league that they're going to be having in 2021, but that's to lose that amount of gates, which they are doing, going from, 70 home dates to probably, I think it's like 35, 36 or something like that. And to lose that affiliation, which was such a huge part of their success. I really wish the best for them going forward. They do put on a really nice off-field and on-field product there in terms of the entertainment. You have the Bat Dogs. You have everything you've come to expect over at Armour and Hammer Park will still be there, I'm sure, and I hope everybody still supports them. But to go that long with that affiliation and then to not just, change affiliations, which would have been okay, would have been an adjustment, like say you become like a Royals affiliate or something like that. Now, okay, that happens. You still got minor league ball. To go to this, that's a big jump for a lot of people who are used to a certain standard of ball. And I'm very curious to see in the long term. I think the short term, they'll be fine, but in the long term, how that kind of adjustment will go for their fan base. There might be some people who just are not into it at all. And there might be people who had never gone to a Thunder game because they hated the Yankees and now feel like they can go. So who knows?
That could be a theme of ours tonight with the hockey discussion. So, I think you're right. In the short term, people are going to want to get back to see baseball. They're going to want to be back at their park. And can it survive? I mean, will they come up with something creative? Like you mentioned, maybe another affiliation, possibly. How would you describe this redraft league for people? It's brand new. I mean, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
Is it rookie league ball? Kind of. Is it
more or less? Yeah, it's. I think the quality of baseball between before the draft and after the draft, it's curious to me that they're having a league that is kind of split around the draft. The quality of ball between before the draft and after the draft, I think, is going to be a little bit different. After the draft, it pretty much turns into somewhat of an independent baseball kind of thing where you have a lot of guys who weren't drafted who are looking for opportunities and are still going to use that league to try to get that opportunity. But I would say it's more like a rookie level ball kind of thing. And again, like that fan base has been so used to a AA level of ball, which many people consider to be the best level of minor league baseball from a competitive standpoint. Obviously there is AAA, but AA is where the majority of the prospects really go to prove themselves, whether they can sink or swim. To not have that there and to not have those big league rehabs and all that kind of stuff, that's going to be an adjustment there. But in terms of your question in the draft league, it's just a bunch of college guys who are, draft eligible and are looking for a place to kind of showcase themselves and, show what they can do in kind of a last opportunity before the draft comes up. again, it's a new league. I'm not really sure what kind of quality of ball player you're going to see there, whether you're going to see like really big, like D1, like top program, like SEC,
Yeah.
ACC. I don't know if you're going to see those kind of guys. I don't know if you're going to see like your D2, your D3, your fringe guys, your guys who are kind of hanging on and hoping to get an opportunity when in reality, maybe, I don't know. I don't think anybody can really speak to that until we see how the first year unfolds, but I can tell you it's not going to be AA baseball. And I think that's going to be a big adjustment for a lot of people.
Would they be able to beat Rutgers men's baseball team? Because I know you
Yeah.
cover Rutgers for
Yes.
different sports.
Yes. Well, I don't know. I haven't covered a lot of Rutgers baseball. I don't know. We'd have to see. That could be an interesting little interlevel matchup there. You never know.
So yeah, and moving on. This is good news for Somerset. They've run a great product for
Sure.
decades, right? If I'm correct, Steve Califer and the crew over there at Somerset Patriots. Can you explain what is this like for them?
Sure. I think the most important thing I can get across is Somerset didn't ask for this. It wasn't a situation where they're like, hey, we want this, screw Trenton. We don't care about them. And again, there's been animosity between those two franchises and organizations. That's no secret there. But this was not something that Somerset, tried to pull off or scheme or anything like that. The Yankees came to them. And it all kind of unfolded from there. It was on shaky ground for a while. That was ever going to happen. It finally did. That's through no fault of Somerset. Just obviously, the Yankees had a lot of big decisions to make with changing all their affiliations around. But this is huge for Somerset. It really is. It wasn't something necessarily needed to do. I think there are some franchises who could be in this spot who maybe they needed to do it if they had like declining attendance or interest or stuff like that. Somerset packs the house. Obviously, there are your Tuesday
for independent ball.
Oh yeah. That speaks to the quality of the people they have there. It speaks to the quality of the organization, the field, everything, the job they do there. That speaks to that to fill that place almost every night for independent ball. But like I was saying, there's going to be your Tuesday, your Wednesday night where maybe it's half full, 3/4 full, but for the most part, they're leading the league in attendance every year. They're doing a great job over there, and it's a logical fit for the Yankees to, move their affiliation over there. At the same time, it's very tough to see Trenton lose that. I think you can put out some fake BS essentially on social media and people will buy it. But for me, it's genuine. Like it is sad for me to see, as happy as I am as a quote unquote, the Somerset guy, to have this fall in my lap. It is sad to see Trenton lose their affiliation too. Cause I made a lot of great friends over there that I still keep in touch with, every day now. And, to see them, have to really battle and try to maintain things over there now with having lost that affiliation, that's tough to see as well. But in terms of a Somerset standpoint, this is great for them. It's a huge boost going forward. When you're, lined up with the Yankees affiliate, you are essentially printing money. Obviously, there was a big investment to A, get the affiliation itself, and B, get the ballpark up to minor league standards, which most minor league ballparks are not, given what the recent MILB mandates for minimum requirements for an MILB ballpark are, stuff with lighting and separate buildings for women to dress in and hitting cages and clubhouse requirements and all that stuff. I mean, most ballparks were not built with those standards in mind. So they're going to make a big investment there, but there's no doubt that long-term they're going to get that back and then some with a pretty successful partnership down the road here with the Yankees.
So you kind of one of the reasons I had heard is that Waterfront Park, Arm & Hammer Park.
Yes.
I noticed you did that before. It used to be called Waterfront Park. Was not up to those specifications that you mentioned, but I did not know that the Somerset Patriots Park was not either. So is that kind of a myth that's been floating around that's one of the reasons Trenton lost the affiliation?
Yes and no. I think a lot of the concerns in Trenton were with the playing surface itself. Which is different than any issues Somerset might have. Dan Perner and the grounds crew in Somerset have perpetually done an amazing job over there. And Dan learned a lot from the late Ray Sipperly, who did a great job in Somerset as well. But, that playing surface has always been, with only a few exceptions for things that have been out of Dan's control, playing surface has always been immaculate. That stadium has always been incredibly well maintained. Yeah. And I know there were some pictures of Trenton's playing surface floating around that did not necessarily paint it in the best light. I know there were some reports that the Yankees had maybe not wanted to send some of their big league rehab guys there based on conditions in the mound or the field and stuff like that. I think there were some quotes from Aaron Boone about Luis Severino at a time where maybe there was an option where he could go to Trenton, and he said he liked the mound better somewhere else, something like that. So I think that all kind of snowballed a little bit. And I will say that I saw the Trenton ownership statement on all this when it happened, and they tried to paint it. How is the best way to put this? They tried to paint it in a way where the Yankees arbitrarily moved the affiliation to Somerset over socioeconomic issues. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's a heavy one, sure.
The cities are different, you know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There's no getting around that. But I think that maybe doesn't really. Maybe there's some validity to that. I don't know. I can't necessarily fully speak to that, but I think that undermines maybe some issues as well that Trenton was having that ultimately led to this. But again, on the surface, the whole thing was shocking. You would never think that when they were shuffling all this around, that Trenton would be an organization that would be out. I've been to countless minor league hellholes, shall we say, where conditions were legitimately crappy. And Trenton, I never had a problem there. I guess I hadn't been there much in the last couple of years, and maybe things had taken a turn over the past couple of years. But that place was always pretty well packed.
Attendance has been pretty stable.
Yeah, conditions were pretty good. So again, this is all even now. Still, I guess what are we like a month and a half removed from the announcement? Now it's still all pretty shocking to talk about.
You mentioned some differing ill wills potentially between the ownership of the. I was not familiar with that. Now, is that more or less they're competing for the same fans? I mean, a lot of listeners listening to this. It's for me here in Lambertville. I mean, Trenton's closer, but it's equally distant almost.
Yeah, it's more the concept of independent baseball as a whole. Trenton came here in '94. I want to say.
Sounds
Tigers, right. Yep, Tigers affiliate. It was what Tigers affiliate in '94, Red Sox from '95 to '02, and the Yankees from '03 to 20. So Trenton came here and they were still, a pretty new organization trying to find their footing, and the whole concept of independent baseball and not really having to necessarily abide too much by all the territorial stuff that would limit other minor league teams from moving in. There's always been some from the people who've been there a while, and I would say it's more on one side than the other, probably the Trenton side, if we're being honest. There's always kind of been some hard feelings between those two organizations. I think those have kind of dissipated maybe over the past 5-10 years or so, as some of the people who have been there longer have kind of, moved on or whatever it is. But I don't think it's at all unfair to say that there's been some, not so great feelings between both organizations. But again, that's a lot of that has dissipated as of late too. I'm not sure, again, with what's happened with Trenton essentially losing their affiliation to Somerset, that might bring back a lot of that. And that might be why you saw a lot of the vitriol in the ownership statements. But it's not always been peachy between those two. That's absolutely fair to say.
And just a plug for a book that you and I had chatted a little bit about, No Minor Accomplishment. I mean, New Jersey has lost a lot of professional sports teams in baseball mostly. This is by Bob Gollin, The Revival of New Jersey Professional Baseball. And when he wrote that book in 2008, it seemed like minor league sports was at its height in the state. And then we've seen quite a contraction across the state.
Yeah, the Atlantic League was pretty much full of Jersey teams at that time. That was my beat at the time, was basically the Atlantic League. Just getting into doing Trenton full-time again too. But I mean, Atlantic City, gone. Camden, gone. Newark, gone.
And the stadium gone in Camden. I can't believe they did it.
Yeah, people, this is an entirely separate conversation. Yeah. People fell in love with the view there and did.
It was great.
Yeah, but they didn't look at the actual stadium itself, which kind of sucked.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, I wouldn't say it sucked. It was getting to a condition to where it wasn't being well maintained, shall we say, and there were some very obvious signs of that. But that view, even the view in AC was good too. I don't think a lot of people got to go there, but the view in AC was great. You got to see all the casinos and stuff. You're kind of on this little, almost an island kind of setup there.
Yeah.
And the view there was great, but a view is not all you need for a good ballpark and a successful setup. And unfortunately, those organizations proved that.
You were mentioning the other ones. Sorry, before I questioned. The other ones that are all right. So we have the Skyhawks, who now are the Miners who actually had a season with the Jackals in North Jersey. The Jackals had one, and am I missing? What are the other teams I'm missing? Is that it? Are those all the minor league baseball teams? I'm probably missing one.
Lakewood as well. So.
Oh, Lakewood. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. The Jersey Shore Blue Claws. They are now known as. That's a very subtle way to drop the Lakewood name after all the COVID related
Yes.
nonsense that was there. But again, that's another separate conversation too. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it's branding. It's so yeah, how did they end up having a season? Is it just because they're independent and they kind of like, so the Miners up in Sussex County and then the Jackals in Passaic County had a season of sorts,
Yeah,
and they
Somerset
had
did as well.
fans.
Yeah, Somerset did as well.
Oh wow,
Somerset did
okay.
yeah, Somerset did the Jersey Professional Baseball Series or something like that, where they kind of created a second team, a second separate team called the Bridgewater Blasters and New Jersey Blasters, and they kind of had a very limited engagement. I think it was 500 fans or something like that. They did
Huh.
kind of a weekend series there. Same thing that the Frontier League did as well. American Association Frontier. I always forget what the Can-Am League changed to, but the
Yeah.
former Can-Am League teams, put on kind of a league of their own as well. And yeah, again, they were, at the time there was no, they didn't do that big league partnership thing yet, so they were able to kind of do a lot of their own things. So yeah, they were able to put on these weekend leagues and midweek leagues with very limited fans. And it was more to keep themselves relevant and keep themselves in discussion than it was to
Yeah.
make any sort of money. Because if you're opening for 500 fans or whatever, you're not making jack. So
Yeah.
because you got to pay the players too. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I guess, is there anything else before moving on to Trenton? I'd like to focus, on Trenton for the second half of this.
sure.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to the whole baseball move discussion from Trenton to Somerset?
I'm looking forward to it. People assume that I am 1,000% back and getting to cover it. I don't know yet. Again, we're taping this in
Oh
very
boy.
late December.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I think I'll be there one way or the other, but whether it's in my my quote unquote usual setup with the Courier News, which has been the case since 2013, I don't know yet. I'd like to be back. Talk to my bosses about that. They know I want to be back, but we'll see. But it's a very exciting time to have anything to do with the Somerset Patriots for sure. And I think for the Trenton Thunder fans as well, they should be, I don't know, so much excited as I would say intrigued by what's going to happen. Just give it a chance. That's all I can really say to people in Trenton is just give it a chance. Y'all are used to, double A ball for the past 25 years. And that's great. And I think maybe you guys will get a chance to see how difficult it is and what Somerset's had to do to run something that maybe isn't quite as affiliated, with the big leagues. Obviously, Somerset was entirely independent over their run, and Trenton has a somewhat loose-ish big league affiliation now with this draft league. But just give it a chance. It should be good baseball. If it's not, y'all are going to find out anyway. So give it a chance. Buy your tickets there, support the Thunder. They've been a great organization on and off the field. They've done a lot of great things in the community for a community that can really use it in Trenton as well. So, give them a chance is really all I can say. Don't necessarily pay attention too much to the affiliation as maybe the product that you're going to see on and off the field there with the entertainment that Trenton's going to provide you at hopefully still a pretty decent ticket price there. So let's give it a shot.
So you said a city that could use it, and
Sure.
that's where I'd like to talk about Trenton. So across the way, there is Cure Insurance Arena, which was built a little later. I don't want to say quite a decade later, but roughly like a handful of years later than, Waterfront Park, now Arm& Hammer Park. And it wasn't called Cure in the beginning. I actually forget what it was called.
Sovereign Bank Arena when I was there.
Got it. And they had a minor league hockey team, the Titans, and they also, had a lot of concerts there, especially in the early run. And this is built in 1999 to much fanfare. I mean, I remember even the Devils and Flyers played a game there or two against each other. There were a couple pro exhibition games. And then the team stops operations after some transitions in the middle of their existence in 2013.
Sure.
Can you explain what happened? Was it destined to lose from the start? What happened with the minor league team, hockey team?
There's so many things working against anything in Trenton. I'd love to say that in a nicer, cleaner, smoother, classier way, but that's just the reality of it is. Because I've seen it so many times, I guess you classify Trenton as more of an urban market. I hope that's fair. I don't mean that in any sort of disrespectful way. It's just the truth. It's more of an urban market. And I've seen that in Bridgeport. I've seen that in Newark where, these teams where they come in and it's hot as hell in the first couple of years and they're packing the place and it's so exciting. And then gradually the location and the stigma attached to that location kind of catches up with them. I know you're going to talk a little bit later about the comparison between where the arena is and where the ballpark is. And that's a huge thing for Trenton. The location of the arena hurts them so much because it's basically catty corner to the jail. I don't want to hang around a jail in any city, no less Trenton. Let's just be honest. So I think that caught up with them quite a bit. I think there was a lot of mismanagement type things up top as well. I know the Devils affiliation killed a lot of momentum there. There were a lot of things that were working against that, and they should have had a much longer run than they had. But I think that Devils affiliation really kind of started the snowball rolling towards where they ultimately got, which was nowhere.
So for listeners unfamiliar, it started off in the 99-2000 season, and I'm seeing, and maybe I should screen share this, is a precipitous decline in their attendance. That I shared this with you, a pretty big decline from 7,000, an average of almost over 7,000, and it's just like a big slide. The Devils affiliation is in 2005, 2006, if I'm correct, and then that's like a weird transition year where there's still, I think, some Flyers and Devils and maybe Islanders players, and then it goes to all Devils by 2006, 2007. And what's funny is the biggest dip from here to here is in the lockout season where they win the Kelly Cup.
Yeah.
Like it's so, and for people that don't know, this is also the Lou Lamoriello Devils, where, as a Devils fan, I mean, no facial hair, if I'm correct. It was something, he just had so many weird, no marketing, no third jerseys. Yep. Like just Lou's not a friend to, just look at the Islanders reverse retro jerseys if you want to see like how much Lou likes marketing.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on winning with him, and that works at the big league level for sure. That man's track record with Devils, with the Islanders, anywhere he's been, there's no getting around that. Minor leagues, you got to have some fun, and especially in a market in Trenton where you have to, you can see that dip, and you kind of want to get some of that back. And if he's not essentially really not letting you do a whole lot with that, you can't have, funky jersey nights, which the Titans did a lot. You can't. There's a whole lot of stuff you really just can't do in terms of when you have that big parent affiliation and the parent name. When they were changed over the Trenton Devils, which I think alienated a lot of people, but
it did. And on the personal and the anecdotal level, it did.
Yeah. So that again, it was going a certain direction, but at some point that kind of flatlines and kind of stabilizes, and it never really did there. They tried to kind of skip ahead, I guess, a little bit. They tried to kind of salvage that back when they brought back the Titans, and there were a lot of good-intentioned people who were associated with that, and they made it more of a Flyers thing, which was always geographically made a lot more sense in that region. They had this big marketing campaign. One of the marketing campaigns they did have when they were the Devils was Paint the Town Red.
I got the shirt, so I wore the shirt just because I took it up for this. Yep. I remember that.
That didn't work.
But I understand why you're trying to do it. It's Mercer County is arguably the most divided sports county in the entire state.
Sure, but I mean, you got to know your spot there, and that's still mostly a Flyers location. And if things went a little differently, Titans maybe still, I don't know if they'd still be around, but they would have had a much longer second run than they did. They were doing a lot of good things with the Flyers affiliation there. They were making a lot of inroads. They had a lot of, Flyers legends. You saw a lot of Flyers orange in the stands. They were doing a lot of good things there. Just from a business standpoint, a lot of bridges had been burned previous to them coming in, and a lot of those bridges were set on fire further when they got there, and there just wasn't – it's the same thing, and again, I know you want to get to that later too, is with the indoor football teams they've had there. There's so many bridges that have been burned in the past that really hurt the chances of anything really being successful there from a sports team standpoint in the future. And the Titans – if the Titans can't work there, I don't know really what can work there from a main tenant sports team in that arena.
Yeah, and I do want to get there, but for me, I was a partial season ticket holder towards the end there. We enjoyed going to the games. So for me, 12-13, the year that the Titans left, seemed to be a terrible, terrible time for Trenton. The mayor had been arrested and indicted, Tony Mack. And then the pizza places all seemed to move at once. Delo's, the original one, closed down in 2011 or 12, early 2012, I think. And then the other one on Hamilton Avenue moves to Robbinsville, and then Papa's moves the same year, I think, until 2013. And it kind of like, when the Titans were leaving, we would go and have pizza. And I was kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. The pizza places are leaving, and now the hockey team's done. Like, it just seemed like do you remember, like, was there anything going on? Is it just it was a perfect wave almost?
Yeah, I know they were trying to, and maybe this is more so people forget I worked a year for the Trenton Steel too, the indoor pool.
Oh,
Actually, I worked for them. They tried to build up the downtown area a little more. They did like the Trenton downtown social club, I want to say it was called. Like they were making active efforts to try to build up the town around the arena, around the ballpark, around all this stuff, and it wasn't. I just don't think they were there yet at a point where it was ever really going to work. It's a tough spot in general, but it's a tough spot to really build around. At least at that point, hopefully things are different now, but it's a really tough spot to try to build around. And I think a lot of businesses were kind of seeing that and maybe trying to get out. I can't really speak, for them, but I think a lot of places were just trying to, find spots. Maybe they could be more successful elsewhere. I don't know.
So, and the location you mentioned by the jail, but this whole idea, I believe, and I'll probably get corrected if I'm wrong, was to try to set up like a little mini triangle and rebuild the city on a bigger level through the hotel is at the north, I guess, quote unquote, north end of this triangle, the Thunder Ballpark towards the west, and the arena was to the east. And you could draw like a little triangle, and it was still, the idea was, hey, business will just pop up organically in the middle of all this now. All right. So, and then you got the State House there, of course. But many people have said you should have just thrown the arena right by the ballpark.
Yep, absolutely. A big reason, I wouldn't say a big reason, but I would argue a big part of why the Thunder had a lot of success they did is because of where that ballpark was. You felt safe there. Let's just be honest. You felt safe there. There were times where, I'd be covering the Thunder and I'd be doing something with the Titans or the T-Devils on the same day, and I would have to walk between the ballpark and the arena. And you talked about the triangle. There's a tip of that triangle you do not want to go to. You do not want to walk through. So if they had just put the arena there, I think ultimately they would have had a lot more long-term success. I'm not sure if they wouldn't have ultimately went down the same path that they did. But the difference between a few blocks in Trenton, and it's I don't mean it in a disrespectful or nasty or mean way. It's just a reality. The difference between a few blocks in Trenton is freaking huge. And if you go from the ballpark and you go to the arena, it's like you're in two different worlds.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've walked a lot of Trenton for a group that I did called Code to Trenton. I get it. I get it. You have to make people feel safe, and especially families. And coming in from the suburbs, it speaks to whole different divides that we have. On a national level as well. Well, the arena is under new ownership now. I'm correct. They had just renovated it. If I'm correct, the year prior. Like there's an article I pulled up for this. That it was February 1st, and it was like everything's going well. It's from the Bucks County Courier-Times, and it's like they just new ownership group. They apparently really revamped it. I mean,
it needed it. It needed it. When I did 5 years there. I did 5 full seasons on the beat there for the Trenton Devils and the Trenton Titans, and that place showed its age and then some, especially in the seating bowl. I don't know if you remember, like there were just chunks of seats that like were not like screwed down anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that place was, I would say it was falling apart. I think that's an overstatement, but it clearly needed some TLC, and I'm glad it got it. I don't know if that place can ever overcome its location long term, but I'm glad to see that they at least, put a coat of polish on it, basically.
No, so I mean, they're attracting different events. I mean, before in its low points, you're talking like Monster Truck, Disney on Ice,
high school graduations.
Yeah. Oh, and right now, there's youth hockey going on there. Believe it or there was before the governor shut it down temporarily. The Lawrence Nassau Flames were playing their games there, and apparently it was very expensive to play there for the Flames, but that's what I heard.
I bet they gotta keep the lights on there somehow. So
yeah. So if you walk around the second level of that arena, you'll see Springsteen, probably like just great acts. I'm probably gonna get some wrong, but I believe Petty and Aerosmith were also up there as well. and they don't ever pull those acts anymore. And I had to look into this. It's something called the radius clause. Can you explain to listeners what that is?
Sure, a radius clause. I might not be the best expert on this, but I did look into it. So essentially, it's a promoter trying to protect their event, right? It's saying like, hey, we'll have you here, we'll pay you X amount of this to come here, but you can't perform anywhere else within a certain amount of time within a certain radius of our venue. So when Trenton's Arena was hot, when it first was built, it was hot. Like that was the place to go for a while. When that stopped, there's kind of a B, and C structure with all that. Like, okay, you can play in Trenton, but you can't play here and here. And then it kind of reverted back to say like Prudential Center when that got built. Like, hey, you can play Prudential Center, but you can't play here and here. And Trenton kind of became the you can't play here if you're going to play here because it wasn't the hot place to be anymore. So I think that affected things a lot. I was reading a story that I think the last like major like concert they had was like 2010. I think Justin Bieber showed up there. It isn't a name I thought I'd be dropping on a podcast. But Justin Bieber, I know they had like a rock concert of some sort that did pretty well in like 2019. But there was a large gap between anything of any major interest. WWE would tour there because they're not subject to radius clauses and stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah. What's up?
I didn't know that. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, WWE would tour there. I think once or twice a year they would swing by there, but there really wasn't a whole heck of a lot in terms of outside interest. Disney on Ice was there a decent amount. They'd have the circus. There was a bunch of stuff that wasn't really subject to that, but as far as like major entertainment acts go, they really, after a while, it stopped being the place to go.
Yeah. No, I mean, and yeah, so I mean, if I'm performing in Newark, I draw a line, a radius, a circle around the mileage, I can't perform in Trenton, unless it's, I guess, 3 months later, and then but by then I'm going to be on the West Coast probably. Exactly. So it's tough for the arena. And are you familiar at all with the hotel? It's not even the operating hotel anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of the best suggestion I would have for anybody who wants to read about the hotel is to read about the hotel. Google it. There's a lot of stuff in the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years or so that's gone on with that hotel that are not wonderful. So you can Google that and do the research there, but there's probably not a whole lot of good I can speak on with that. So.
And you think that was a problem because, were the visiting teams staying there?
Yeah, there was a whole, even like with the Titans, like the year that they came back in 12-13, there was a lot of issues with housing there. They tried to put them just across the border at some spot in PA. And I know there were some issues with payments being made to that place where players would, walk back and see eviction notices on their door. That was fun. So there was.
Oh yeah, the team went bankrupt. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of issues that year, and I think the hotel being in the state that it was, and again, I'm really best to leave that mostly alone. The hotel being in the state that it was did not help matters. In terms of people wanting to be there in terms of road teams or the league, anybody wanting to be there at all. So
yeah, you have to have, if you're a professional organization and you don't have any place for your road teams to stay, it becomes an issue. If you're getting bussed in from Lawrenceville on Route 1, somewhere, I imagine it becomes a big issue.
Yeah, I think the Thunder moved their league hotel a couple years ago to somewhere. I think in Princeton they moved it to, but there was always the hope that they could keep it in town. And given, again, speaking vaguely, given what was going on there largely, they did not find it a suitable environment to have people there.
So I know that, the mayor, Reed Gouchior now has been talking about this before he was mayor, before when he was just an assemblyman. Mm-hmm. He wants to move the state offices next to the park there, the baseball park, and develop it, sell it and develop it. I don't know honestly where things stand for that now, but I mean, could you imagine any form of sports entertainment or anything, or could you imagine an addition of some sort? I mean, I don't know how you'd build it, but you mentioned locker rooms. Could you imagine some of that being attached to the ballpark at all?
Yeah, I guess. I guess ultimately with I'm trying to think of a way they could even make it work where they could put like some sort of arena on that space. I don't know if it's a
Yeah.
nightclub still. It used to be Kathmandu. I haven't been there in a while. I don't know what it is now. Is it a restaurant still? Is
It
it even
was
open?
Rio. I'm pretty sure it was Rio
Sure.
for a while, and I drive by it all the time. I just, I have kids. I never
Yeah,
go
yeah. I
there
don't.
anymore.
Yeah, I think I went in there once for lunch, and I was like, I'm good on that.
Oh, it used to be hopping.
Oh
It
yeah,
used to
no,
it back in the day.
yeah. After Thunder games, I would get out, and like you'd have to park back in that area sometimes. That's a good chunk of land right there. If you were able
Yeah,
to build something on that, in terms of a sports complex, there just isn't enough. I don't think there is enough to actually have
yeah.
like a whole arena or anything like that. If
You'd
they
have
did
no
this all,
parking. Yeah, you'd have to
yeah,
figure out parking after that.
yeah. If they did this all differently, maybe again, like you said earlier, maybe you would have the arena like right by the ballpark. But that's just not. It's not the reality of what they had to work with. And I think ultimately that's kind of what bit them in the rear end. So.
Yeah. So, well, is there anything else that you'd like to add to either the baseball, the hockey end, anything you're excited for in 2021 besides finding out if you're going to be working Patriots games regularly?
Um, Yeah, and it's the whole, a lot of 2020 was still up in the air for a lot of people. And there's a lot of people who obviously have things way, way worse than I do. I get paid to write about sports. Like my life's, not too bad, but there's a lot of people who don't know, where the next paycheck is coming from and all that kind of thing, especially in a market like Trenton, where, a lot of people are struggling to begin with. So, I wish the best for them. I hope that things get back to normal for everybody and we're able to kind of help these communities out through sports and stuff like that. And I'm excited to see how this all unfolds too, with how the affiliation actually pans out in Somerset and how it affects the fan base and how it affects the fan base in Trenton. There's a lot to hopefully look forward to seeing in terms of how things play out from a sports standpoint and also from a humanity standpoint. So I guess we'll all
Yeah.
we'll safely see together.
Well, and so you cover a whole bunch of teams, past and present. Can you just tell people where to find you online and then just tell them the work that you've done and that you're doing?
Sure. You guys can find me on social media and all various platforms at Mashmore98, Mashmore 98. Currently, geez, I am still technically the national hockey writer for the Trentonian, even though I have not covered a game since March. I am your Jets game day beat writer. I'm your Rutgers football game day beat writer. I'm your Rutgers men's basketball game day beat writer. And till told otherwise, I am your Somerset Patriots beat writer for mycentraljersey.com. I'm also the lead writer for the New Balance Baseball Future Star Series, powered by Program 15. When you freelance, it takes a while to get through all the stuff you do, but very fortunate. Got my start in Somerset and have done 4 Super Bowls and 6 World Series and 8 Stanley Cup Finals and a lot of other stuff that I'm really proud of. And obviously Trenton played a really big role in that as well to kind of elevate my career to a point to where I can do a lot of the bigger baseball stuff as well, with kind of the affiliated connection there with the Yankees, kind of helped me get a lot of my bigger baseball stuff on my resume. So I'm grateful to everybody in Somerset. I'm grateful to everybody in Trenton. And I hope that everything really works out great for both spots in 2021 and beyond.
Well, again, this is Steve Chernoski, and this is Tapinto You, a new podcast on regional issues brought to you by Tapinto Flemington-Raritan, your neighborhood news online. Find us at tapinto.net. My guest today has been Mike Ashmore, sports writer of many local teams, as you just heard. Mike, thanks again for joining us and taking time out to do this. Really appreciate it.
Steve, absolutely no problem, man. Anytime.